Your baby spots you across the room and absolutely lights up. Not crying, the opposite. Both arms shooting upward, whole body straining toward you. That high-pitched sound that lives somewhere between a squeal and a command. Then, your partner walks in a few minutes later and gets a casual look, maybe a little smile. Nothing remotely like the scene you just witnessed. And if you happen to be the parent who got the casual look, you already know exactly what that feels like. A mix of finding it funny and feeling something quietly pinch in your chest that you'd never admit out loud. You laugh it off. You say, I guess they're a daddy's baby today, or I guess they're a mama's baby today, and you move on with your evening. But somewhere underneath that, a question lingers. Why? Why this person, and not me? Most people brush it off as a phase. Pediatricians label it normal, and technically, both answers are correct. But the researchers who have built entire careers around early attachment behavior will tell you something those answers leave out completely. What seems like a simple preference is actually one of the most advanced evaluation systems evolution has ever assembled, and the baby running it has absolutely no clue they're doing it. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, the way you read that single moment is going to change forever. Let's begin with the assumption nearly every parent makes. The baby attaches to whoever feeds them, whoever shows up the most, whoever handles the bulk of the day-to-day care. Pure cause and effect. More time means stronger bond. It sounds bulletproof. And for decades, this was the prevailing belief inside developmental psychology. Then somebody actually ran the numbers. A 2013 investigation out of the University of Haifa tracked 112 families across the first 18 months after birth. They logged caregiving hours, feeding sessions, night wakings, every measurable variable a researcher could think of. Then they assessed attachment preference at 6, 9, and 12 months using a standardized framework called the Strange Situation Procedure. The results dismantled the time equals bond theory almost overnight. The number of caregiving hours did not reliably predict which parent the baby gravitated toward. In a substantial percentage of households, babies showed stronger attachment signals toward the parent who was around less time, less direct caregiving, stronger bond. The researchers had set out to prove the obvious. What they found made no intuitive sense whatsoever, and it forced an entire field to rethink what they thought they understood about the way babies attach. So if it isn't the hours, what is it? The answer arrived from a completely different angle. In 2019, a team at the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences released a study built around something they called interactional contingency. The phrase sounds clinical, but the idea behind it is almost embarrassingly simple. Contingency is just responsiveness, not how present you are physically, but how reliably you pick up on what your baby is signaling and meet that signal in real time. A parent who's home for 12 hours but routinely distracted, exhausted, scrolling on their phone, drifting through their own thoughts, generates a completely different neural experience for the baby than a parent who's home for 4 hours and entirely tuned in during those 4 hours. Quantity of presence and quality of presence are not the same thing, and the baby's brain knows the difference long before any of us would guess they could. The baby's brain, it turns out, isn't keeping a tally of hours. It's tracking something far more delicate. It's tracking how often this person actually sees me, and this is where the science gets genuinely surprising. Babies as young as 8 weeks have already shown the ability to tell the difference between responses that are tied to their own behavior and responses that aren't. 8 weeks. Most parents are still navigating sleep deprivation and feeding schedules at that age, and the baby in their arms is already running a sophisticated detection program. Researchers proved this with an experiment called the mobile contingency task. Babies were attached to a hanging mobile by a soft ribbon tied to their ankle. When they kicked, the mobile moved. Most figured out the connection within minutes and started kicking with growing intent and excitement. They had discovered something powerful. They had discovered cause and effect. Then the researchers flipped the setup so the mobile moved on its own, completely disconnected from the baby's movements. The babies picked up on it, not in any way they could put into words, but in measurable physiological data. Their heart rate shifted, their interest dropped, something that, in older subjects, you'd recognize as frustration, then disengagement. The conclusion the researchers drew was that the infant brain comes wired with an internal radar for contingency, for cause and effect, for I did something and someone noticed. Every interaction with a caregiver runs through that exact same radar. When one parent reliably catches the small signals, the soft fuss before the actual cry, the subtle shift in posture before the meltdown, the difference between a reach that wants to be held and a reach that just wants to be close, that parent slowly accumulates something researchers refer to as felt security. Not love as an idea, a felt neurologically wired sense of this person tracks me. This person is safe. The baby reaching for that parent across the room isn't choosing them sentimentally, they're acting on the result of an evaluation they've been running running quietly since the earliest weeks of life. And the wild part is that this evaluation never stops. It runs constantly, silently, beneath every diaper change, every feeding, every casual moment of eye contact. The baby is updating their internal map of safety in real time every single day. But there's a layer to all of this that almost no parent is ready for, because the preference doesn't stay locked in place. And the way it shifts reveals something fascinating about how early thinking actually operates. Developmental psychologists at the University of Minnesota's Institute of Child Development have mapped preference patterns across infancy and uncovered a clear sequence. Somewhere between 6 and 9 months, most babies lock onto a single primary attachment figure. This is exactly when stranger anxiety hits its peak, and it lines up with a sweeping reorganization in how the infant brain sorts the social world. Familiar against unfamiliar, safe against unknown. The preference isn't really about the parent at all. It's about the baby's brain drawing a circle around what it has classified as known and pulling toward the center of that circle whenever the world starts feeling uncertain. Here is what that looks like in everyday life. The parent getting pushed away during this stretch isn't being rejected as a person. They're being used as a measurement tool. Watch what happens when that parent walks into the room during a calm moment. No stress, no strangers, no disruption. The preference softens noticeably. It tightens back up the moment the baby gets tired, sick, or overstimulated. The attachment hierarchy isn't a ranking of love, it's a threat assessment, and the parent at the top of that hierarchy is whoever the baby's nervous system has flagged as the most consistent signal that the threat level is low. Read that again, because it changes everything. The baby pushing you away in the hard moments isn't telling you that you matter less. They're telling you that the world feels uncertain, and they need to go to the place their nervous system has marked as safest right now. That place isn't a verdict on your love, it's a verdict on their fear. Now I need to share the finding that completely flipped how researchers understand the non-preferred parent, because for decades the assumption was that secondary attachment simply meant a weaker bond, less essential, more interchangeable. The data from the past 10 years has dismantled that assumption entirely. A landmark long-term study published in the journal Child Development followed children from infancy all the way through age 7 and discovered something striking. The quality of attachment to the secondary caregiver, the parent who doesn't get the dramatic arms-out greeting at the end of the day, predicted specific cognitive and social outcomes that primary attachment simply did not. Specifically, the child's willingness to step into unfamiliar situations, their resilience when the primary caregiver was unavailable, their ability to build relationships with people outside the immediate family. The secondary parent wasn't building a smaller version of the same bond. They were building an entirely different bond, one that did entirely different work. Researchers gave this phenomenon a name. They called it the secure base extension. The primary attachment figure functions as home base. The secondary attachment figure is the one who teaches the child it's safe to leave home base in the first place. The baby who hands you the polite smile while losing their composure over the other parent isn't dismissing you. They're practicing on you, learning through their interactions with you that the world beyond the inner circle can also be navigated, that strangers can become familiar, that unknown can become safe. You aren't the second choice. You're delivering a different and completely irreplaceable lesson. Without you, the baby would have a base but no map. You are the map, and in the long run, the map matters every bit as much as the base. There is one thing worth paying attention to, however, because healthy preference comes with a recognizable signature, and when that signature is missing, researchers say it actually matters. Normal attachment preference flexes during calm moments and intensifies under stress. The baby who strongly prefers one parent should still eventually settle for the other, should still play and engage with the other, should still show recovery when the preferred parent comes back after being gone. What developmental pediatricians actually look out for is a different picture entirely. A baby who can't be soothed by either parent. A baby who shows the same flat response to both caregivers and to total strangers. A baby who doesn't seem to lock onto either parent's face with any meaningful attention or pull. These patterns, researchers at the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development point out, can suggest disruptions in the attachment system that have nothing to do with parenting and everything to do with how the baby's nervous system is processing social input. Catching it before 12 months changes what intervention is capable of accomplishing in ways that waiting until toddlerhood simply cannot match. Trust your gut on this. You're observing this child more carefully than anyone else on the planet, and the parents who sense something feels off are almost always right that something deserves a closer look. So the next time your baby reaches past you for the other person in the room, remember what's actually unfolding in front of you. A brain that has been running a constant evaluation since before it could even hold its own head up. A nervous system that has stored thousands of micro-interactions and used every one of them to construct a map of who sees me most clearly. A tiny human human carrying out the most sophisticated thing any organism is capable of, ranking the world by how safe each part of it feels and leaning toward the person who has made it feel safest most often. That isn't rejection, that's precision, and it's the most honest thing any of us ever communicates to another person. If you've been the non-preferred parent and this changed what that experience means to you, drop a comment below, because that feeling is more common than anyone openly discusses, and the science behind it is more fascinating than most parents expect. And if you want to understand why babies fall apart the second one parent leaves the room, but seem completely fine 2 minutes later, that's the next video. The neuroscience behind it isn't anything close to what most parents assume. I'll see you in the next one.